Psalm 19, where David makes it's not really a transition, it's a hop from the wonders of the natural world around us and how they call out to us that there is a designer, that there is a creator, and that he is, this is one of the things I draw from it, he is transcendent. No human could ever do what he has done in creation. And now, in verse 7, David kind of jumps to the concept of God's law. The instructions of the Lord are perfect, reviving the soul. Now, this is from the New Living Translation. The NIV says, the law of the Lord is perfect. Okay, let's think about that. The law of the Lord is perfect. Now, if something is perfect, nothing can be added to it. Well, you could, if you added anything to it, it would no longer be perfect. Because if it's perfect, it is complete. There is nothing to add, right? Okay. So in that sense, the law of the Lord is perfect. We don't need to add anything to it. Well, let's think about that. All right, historically, the rabbis had added to it. They had expanded on, and in their mind, all they were doing is bringing more clarity to the law in its application. There was an almost infinite number of opinions and teachings from the rabbis, and not just one, many rabbis that eventually were held to be as binding as the law itself. By the time Jesus was on the earth in physical form, this was the case. The traditions of the rabbis had become as binding and significant as the law itself. Okay, that created no small problem for Jesus and the apostles. Not to mention, everybody was trying to live a righteous life because they had what the standard for that righteous life was not just the law, but all of these interpretations, all of these applications, all of these opinions from the rabbis. I think about it and I think that was just a mess. It didn't work well. That's one of the problems with legalism. It doesn't really work very well because the law is perfect, but we are not. When I said the law is perfect and nothing can be added, pardon me. Here's why I'm pausing on that, because what was added when Jesus came was grace. When grace is added to the law, you get a different life. I would say you get a new life. And the person who embodies grace is Jesus. But see, his view of his role was not that he added anything to the law, but that he fulfilled the law. He completed the law. Well, there's a lot of theology for you to chew on in that, but the instructions of the Lord are perfect. The law itself is, because of its perfection, for David it was binding, but that's not what he points out. He says the instructions of the Lord are perfect, reviving the soul. Have you recently read Leviticus? Yeah. From Exodus 20 on, you have not only the story of the Exodus, the exit of Israel from Egypt, but you also have the law. The scholars that I have read pen about 360 specific laws for the Israelites, for the Jews to observe. When I read Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, my soul doesn't get revived. It gets worn smooth out. All of I'm sorry, God, I know this is not what you, but to me it seems like ticky-tack stuff. Okay. But for David, it revived his soul. How does that work? Because I would like to find some kind of revival of my soul from the law, as opposed to just the fatigue I feel when I'm slogging through it. You know, if I had a way to do that, if I had just do this and the law it will revive your soul. I don't have that thing. I don't know. For me, what revives my soul is knowing that my Savior, he fulfilled the law. We're done. He is the law now. And his law is love one another as I have loved you. I got this idea from Andy Stanley, and I think it's valid, although at first it kind of grinds people. It especially grinds legalists. But here's what he said. When Jesus was asked by what I think it was a sincere scribe, teacher of the law, what is the greatest commandment? You remember Jesus' reply: love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength. And the second is like it: love your neighbor as yourself. All of a sudden, 360 some down to just a couple. Love God and love your neighbor. When he was with his disciples, he said, this is how people will know that you're a follower of mine, if you have love for one another. Love one another. Okay, now, and then he gets even more specific by saying, love one another as I have loved you. This is a huge, huge idea. Because when the law becomes it gets boiled down to love the way Jesus did, couple of things. First of all, it gets very freeing and very difficult at the same time. For me, anyway. I want to love the way Jesus did, but I'm very imperfect at that. When I focus on his love, and it begins with how he loves me, and then I transmit that love to others, there's something incredible about that. The essence of life is to love one another as Jesus loved us. Now, there's a level on which can become a burden, but it also could revive and restore a soul. So, all right. The decrees of the Lord are trustworthy, David writes. Making wise the simple. So, what can I trust about the decrees of the Lord? Well, I can trust that they will make the simple wise. And how do I know that? Because I am simple. And when I organize my life around God's design, I make wise choices. I become wise. The commands of the Lord are right. In other words, I don't have to, when I observe and execute on the law of the Lord, I don't have to wonder, gee, is that the right thing to do? It is the right, always. Now, how I do that right thing, okay, that takes, the good news is the decrees of the Lord make simple people like me wise. Okay, I need that wisdom to be able to make the appropriate and godly application of the law. And David says, the commandments of the Lord are right, bringing joy to the heart. Now we're back to that thing I have, right? I struggle with, so I'm reading the law, and it's so detailed and it's so confining and restrictive, and that's supposed to bring joy to my heart. Well, here's a possibility. When I can experience that as I live my life, and I'll say it this way again, when I organize my life around God's design, it works, and that brings me joy. The commands of the Lord are clear, giving insight for living. Well, yes, when you read Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, the law of the Lord, he does not stutter, he doesn't beat around the bush, and one of the reasons that it's so specific is so that it will be clear and gives insight for living. It's like I said before, when I organize my life around God's design, life works. I get insight for living in a way that works. Well, my time's up. I'll close and see you next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.